Amongst a global pandemic lives George, 42 years old, single, and suffering a midlife crisis. The pandemic has lasted over a year. His few friends and family have stopped calling him. He used to travel by public transit, which is no longer running. George was a loner and an agoraphobe long before the world was forced to quarantine. He gets off the couch after staring at the wall for hours, lost in thought, to grab himself a snack. There's just one problem. As soon as he opens the fridge, he finds nothing inside. Scratching his head, he walks over to the cabinets in the kitchen, opening them one by one only to find nothing. This poses a dilemma for George. He doesn't like to go outside if he doesn't have to, but one cannot live very long without food. It's been over a month since George has gone without going to the grocery store. Reluctantly, he puts on his clothes, mask, gloves, and pulls the hood of his sweater over his head. With a deep breath, George unlocks his front door and opens it. The sunlight stings his eyes as it's been a long time since he's seen the outside world. Shaking off the initial shock, he makes his way to the grocery store. Something isn't quite right, George notices, as no one else is outside. Not even the occasional car driving to who knows where. After what seems like 5 minutes, the grocery store is in sight. George can hear his stomach growling at him. The automatic doors open, but no one is inside the store. No one working, no one shopping. It's very eerie, like something out of a disaster movie. The shelves are all empty, and the floor is covered in a red substance that looks like blood. George walks down the aisle and sees nothing. Finally, he comes to the canned food section, and to his relief, there are 2 cans left of beans. One can of beans is Bosch brand, and the other is Baker's. Anyone else in the situation would have just grabbed both, but George stands there looking at both cans trying to make a decision, something he wasn't good at doing before the pandemic. Also, if he took both, someone else like him out there could go hungry. It hits George that this might be the end of the world after all. After standing there for 10 minutes, Bosch's baked beans starts moving, like it's trying to open itself. Shortly after, the can of Baker's baked beans does the same. Blinking his eyes in disbelief and terror, he slowly takes a couple of steps back until the cans open up and form a mouth.
Hey buddy, are you gonna stand there all day? Or are you gonna pick one of us to take home and enjoy? Asks the can of Bosch's baked beans. George's mouth drops. Then the can of Baker's says,
No, you don't want that nutritionless garbage. I'm maple cured and sweet. Take me home to eat.
Yeah, well, I got bacon, you boring one-note excuse for beans.
George slowly backs away in terror over this phenomenon, not sure if he's gone crazy. Checking on his sanity, George decides to communicate with the cans. Excuse me? Cans don't talk. How can I know if you're for real? Baker's can looks over to Bosch.
You want to take this one?
Bosch nods.
Buddy, we're real, and we've been waiting to be eaten. It's our life's purpose, so please, get on with it.
Baker's can stares at George wordless. George starts to back away, step by step. I'm sorry, guys. I don't need food that talks back to me, and I'm finally ready to start going to therapy. Bosch hops off the shelf, followed by Baker's.
What, we're not good enough for you? Yeah, we're not good enough for you? Well, my new friend, we're just gonna have to eat you.
They start hopping towards George with great vigor, hissing at him. As George bolts away from them, they inch their way toward him, catching up very quickly and leap towards him in unison, but before they do, 2 bullets hit each can, knocking them to the side. George stops in his tracks. He looks behind him to see the 2 cans dead and leaking fluid. A person walks over to George, removes their hood to reveal a woman. She takes her backpack off, unzips it, and pulls out a pot with a sterno stove. George looks at her as she prepares the cooking station and pours the beans into the pot. Both keep intense eye contact on one another until she puts a shopping basket upside down across from her and implies for him to sit. The 2 share a very satisfying meal. The end.